folks, about 24 hours removed from when the polls close in the next election, plus with 76.5 million mail-in and early in-person voting ballots already cast. Let's see how the numbers are looking like right now. So as of this moment, you have about 41% of voters thus far being registered Democrats, where Republicans are at 39%, and the undecided slash independent voter is at 20%. Now, keep this in mind. This is really, really fantastic results for the Republicans. As you know, mail-in ballots in 2020 were anywhere from 20 to 35% more Democrat than they were Republican. To see them that even is actually pretty death-defying. No Republican pundit would have predicted this, by the way. Even the people that are very much in the pocket of the Trump campaign would have not predicted this sort of result. Which then leaves you to have a couple of different reactions. First among them being, well, this must be a cannibalization of the election day vote. And while that is somewhat true, obviously, as like, for example, I would have voted on election day, but since I could have voted the week before, I did. And so I voted days ago. That being said, there are people that never voted before that did by mail, and these are low propensity types, and the Turning Point Action branch of the Trump campaign truly has reinvigorated this sort of populace to vote. So the cannibalization argument is a facetious one, if not one begging ignorance. Now, when you look at the state by state results, these are very diverse. So, for example, in Arizona, Republicans are leading the state environment by 9 points, which is way better than in 2020. That means that you only have the election day votes. Plus, they already have 2.1 million ballots already banked. So the election vote in 2020 could not have been much more than 3 million. So you have the vast majority of the vote already here, already in Arizona, and Republicans are up by 9. Now, what that would mean for Harris to win Arizona, for example, is that she would need to win the election day vote for one, which is definitely not going to happen. It could be closer than the last time, as obviously the mail-in vote is somewhat more even. So you could just argue cannibalization somewhat ameliorates the Democrat liabilities here, but also keep in mind that she would need to win the independent vote by an exorbitant amount, whether that be by like 10 or 15 or something completely unrealistic. So for that reason, Arizona seems to already be out of hand for Kamala Harris. You look at Nevada, and it's a lot closer. In Nevada, Republicans are up by 4 points, which again is pretty good. The amount of early vote is already pretty high. And the Democrats are again behind 34 to the Republicans 38. Plus, if you look at the other vote, third party, or not third party, but independent vote, it's at 28. So the odds of Nevada going Republican might be half as much as Arizona. But if Arizona's already at, let's say, 95% odds of going Republican, then odds are Nevada has a good 65% chance of going GOP this time. So that's the update with Nevada. Again, the Democrats and the liberals are saying, well, what if the independents break very much for Kamala? The question is, why would they ever do that? Okay, think about it. The major issues that Kamala is winning on, if you could even give her that, is going to be democracy. Oh my gosh, the Capitol stuff, the riot. Okay, that issue. Now, nobody's voting because of that. You got Liz Cheney and like 5 of her corporate elite types, and that's it, that care about that sort of thing over everything else. Most people are concerned about grocery bills, electricity bills, gas prices, etc. Those all come before democracy. Now, the next thing the Democrats could win on is abortion. Abortion, though, is something that is somewhat it peaked in relevance 2 years ago. That could explain why maybe 2022 wasn't a red wave, was because mainly abortion. Now, keep this in mind, folks. The whole Roe v. Wade thing, that issue has atrophied at the national level to a point where the people that are voting on that primarily are Democrats just giving themselves a reason and a pretext to vote for Kamala because they know damn well things were better off 4 years ago in every other respect but that one, according to them. Now, that being said, like I said, for abortion to be this major issue, people would be talking about it in exit polls. Thus far, it really hasn't happened, though. So I just don't believe it to be true. In fact, I believe most independent voters in this election cycle will be voting on the economy, immigration, aka what people have been voting on as independent voters for decades. I don't suspect that to change too much. Now, we move on to all right, and to kind of wrap up this portion of the video, let's look at Pennsylvania. Right now, Democrats are again leading Republicans by 24 points. Keep this in mind that obviously they're supposed to be up by over 1.1 million votes when it comes to registration advantage, and that is not even close to being true in this election cycle. Their firewall is to less than half of what it was before. It could be as high as 400,000 for Democrats, and that's still severely undershooting what's going on there. And obviously, Kamala Harris will be spending tomorrow, aka the last day before the election, 3 separate rallies in Pennsylvania. So if you thought that she was going to have a good chance of winning, she probably wouldn't be spending it there. She'd be spending it, I don't know, someplace else that's closer. Anyway, Pennsylvania looking good for Republicans, even if these numbers look bad on the surface. Keep in mind that Republicans should be down 40 at this point, and they're only down 20 something. So very quickly, looking at New Hampshire, Republicans are down by 4. The independent vote is at 30. So the independent vote is very high in New Hampshire, which is historically very accurate. And, obviously, the Republicans being narrowly down here is actually pretty impressive. Keep in mind that Biden won the state officially by 7. So for it to be Trump -4, plus independents that are going to break his way, in my opinion, it'll make it pretty close. It looks like New Hampshire might be 1-point Democrat at the end of the day. So that's actually fantastic news for Trump, because you could extrapolate that to the other northeastern states, plus obviously the swing states. Another state such as, for example, Michigan has a Democratic lead of 3. Now that's, again, pretty good, because Michigan has a storied record of being Democrat. Think of all the people that voted and registered Democrat because of Obama, that also voted for Trump in 16, and you need those people back from that also voted for Biden in 20. So for this to only be a -3 result for Republicans is actually fantastic. And also, the independent vote is only at 11%. And so the independents don't become that important. It becomes a function of turnout, and the turnout looks fantastic, as obviously we still have election day that should be double digits more so Republican than Democrat. At least you would hope so if you want Trump to win. Also, Iowa Republicans lead in registration. So much for that Seltzer poll, by the way. Anyhow, now, if you look at early in-person votes versus mail-in votes, you get those two types. Seems like in-person voting is dominating over mail-in votes, which again is a pretty good sign. If you remember 4 years ago, all those mail-in ballots were pretty bad news for Donald Trump. So that's also really great. Now, gender is the one thing that people would say is actually pretty bad when it comes to the mail-in vote and the in-person vote, where women are leading men by 9 points. And again, women tend to vote majority Democrat, especially with abortion being the top ticket issue. Now, this is still fine, because again, this is a mail-in vote. This is early vote. The Republican vote in person tomorrow, Tuesday, November 5th, will make up for this with the mail vote. Now, again, it's me wish casting right now, but it's also going to be true come tomorrow. I put $1,000 on this, okay? I'm right. Now, look, if you look at the swing states, though, the gender gap might be a little closer. In Michigan, the gender gap is 10, whereas in Arizona, it's only 5. If you look at places like New Hampshire, it's 9. If you look at places like, let me see, we're in Pennsylvania, it's 13. So it's all over the place. We're not sure. We're not sure yet how this is going to go down. But keep in mind also that the places where Democrats predominate are more feminine. Though you do think that obviously Trump will do better with Democrats, historically Democrats, Obama Democrats, than Kamala will do with Trump Republicans. So I still think this is still pretty good for Donald Trump, believe it or not. If we look at age distribution as well, you'll notice that old vote is the one that predominates right now, which is great, because if the old people are voting, that makes it less likely they're not going to be able to turn out on Tuesday. So think about that. Old people obviously getting to the polls, standing in line for hours, not a great idea. So if you get those Republicans to vote early, that's actually really good. And that only really leaves the younger, under 50-year-old male Trump supporter to come out on Tuesday, which is actually pretty good logistics there. Plus, if Democrats were so confident in their turnout, then how is it right here, according to Ben how do you say his last name? Commissar, DNC is rolling out the I Will Vote mobile billboard as part of the $7 million ad campaign. So think about that. They're spending several $1,000,000 on billboards just for this, for them to vote. Well, if they were so confident, I doubt they'd be throwing the money there. They'd be throwing the money in a place that is more Republican, like Florida or Texas, flip a Senate seat with Al Red and Ted Cruz. But they're spending it on just basic shoring up the Democratic vote. With all those data points on early vote, how are the polls looking like when you look at the swing states? So as of right now, Trump has a lead of 0.8 in the spread in all the 7 swing states, with him technically losing Michigan by 1.2, Wisconsin by 0.4, and winning every other state. Arizona by 2.5, Nevada by 1, Pennsylvania by 0.3, North Carolina by 1.5, and Georgia by 1.9. You look at the popular vote, you look at the national head-to-head vote right now, Okay, the website's it crashed for whatever reason. Anyway, the point being is that Trump versus Harris is a 0.1% split right now. So if that's the case, then Trump is leading in the popular vote by a tenth of a point, which is in line with what we've seen the last several days, which is fine. And so right now it's looking really good for Donald Trump. If you look at Arizona, Trump is leading in the early vote by 188,000. Their turnout is ahead of Democrats, so it's virtually guaranteed at this point that the election day vote in Arizona will be more Republican than it is Democrat, which is fantastic. So he's already won the state basically. But also, you look at other places. Now, to kind of put a bow on the video, timing a vote per NBC News. So again, liberal source, and what this means, even though the wording is somewhat confusing, is that if they did a poll basically of the people that already voted, and of those people, 7% on the net said that they voted for Harris, which is making sense kind of because when you look at this number, as I've been showing you all day here, you'll notice that again, Democrats are up relative to Republicans in the early vote. Now, this could have been done days ago, so maybe the Republicans have closed that 7-point lead to something more akin to a 2-point lead. Doesn't matter. Point being is that more people early voted for Harris than they did for Trump, which is okay because, like I said, the last election cycle, it was super slanted, and now it's looking more even. But for the people that have not voted, the ones that do plan to vote on election day, is going to be Trump plus 16, which is where the red wave is at, baby. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah, this vote really is looking bad for Republicans because, oh my God, Democrats are up by 2. But I'm telling you guys, the election day vote will be a lot more red. Obviously, common sense, folks. So if that's the case, then if you're just barely losing now and you add 16, that's going to be a positive 14 vote for Trump on election day. Now, granted, it might not be that high as the 16% of people that are saying, oh, I will vote on Tuesday. Maybe 10% of them won't be able to make it to the polls. Maybe their car doesn't start, or maybe, there's a storm or something, okay? There's a lot of reasons why this could go wrong, but you don't need that much of a margin of victory for Trump to win the election day vote for this to be a huge red wave. Again, in Arizona, as long as Trump doesn't lose the election day vote by more than 10 points to the Democrats, which is definitely not going to happen, he wins Arizona. God forbid. Same thing in Pennsylvania. He just needs to win the election day vote by, let's say, 8%, whereas in 2020, he had to win it by 17 points. This is why the early vote lead relative to last election is so important. So call me manic, call me coping, call me super excited and overconfident, but the truth is that Trump is totally winning this election. And for that reason, I'm going to send you guys a House prediction, a Senate prediction, and a final presidential prediction, all within the next 32 hours or so before the polls close, and I'll see you there. Adios.